We need a life cycle approach to understand the environmental impact of all the products or services produced. Ensuring the correctness of knowledge and the logic must be clear. And simplify. We need to simplify complexity. We turn a crisis into an opportunity. There are even better business opportunities. I think actually having correct knowledge is essential. Correct tools, a correct database. It can provide companies with correct scientific information to assist decision-making. I think this is critical for companies in terms of survival, enhancing competitiveness, and eventually, it has a leading and excellent position that I think it is very important. So I think this part is a very important infrastructure for the company's
Hello everyone.
Future. I am Wang Raymond from the CJCH. Today, we are honored to invite Professor Tung to our session. Let us explain the methodology and overview of LCA. We interpret this issue from the role of a supplier in an industrial supply chain, specifically as a Walmart supplier. Because for many years we have been required by the supply chain to make many demands and efforts on issues of emissions reduction and sustainable management. From his perspective, he looks at our supply chain issues. Does he have any suggestions? Okay. I am a professor in the Department of Biological and Environmental Systems Engineering at National Taiwan University. My name is Tung. Currently, internationally, this is related to sustainable governance. What is actually very important is to have a scientific basis. Carbon footprints or related footprints. I believe this is also a key factor for close cooperation between industry and academia in the future. The life cycle basically does not matter whether it is a product or service, because all businesses are either producing products to sell to customers or providing services to serve customers. So in the process of products or services, what is my impact on the environment? Or how will I be affected by the environment? This we refer to double materiality. One is called dependence. What will I rely on for? Production and services? The other is impact. What will my impact on the environment be? These two aspects actually arise in every stage of the life cycle. From our raw materials to the manufacturing process, to usage, to transportation, we may be affected by the environment at every stage, and we will also impact the environment. After combining these two, how we view them becomes very important. Through the life cycle, I have a scientific method, I have the correct scientific data, and then the results calculated through this scientific method basically have a scientific foundation which can be used for management. I think this is very important for the management of supply chains or enterprises in the future. We strongly agree with Professor Tung's analysis, because over the years, whether in CDP carbon disclosure or dealing with the entire supply chain, we have found it very difficult to address various issues related to sustainable governance without an appropriate tool to handle these topics. That is what we are discussing now. For the full life cycle LCA tool, we wanted to specifically ask Professor Tung, when you use this tool for the supply chain, are there any ways to handle this operationally? We can simplify complexity and get up to speed faster. I think supply chain management is frankly not a strange term in the industry. It's not a new term. Many industries are fundamentally already managing the original supply chain. There's even a complete supply chain management system in all the major universities' public engineering programs. Industrial supply chain management already exists. However, what's important now is that in the past, I viewed this from the company's perspective and had my own management processes. I just need to satisfy my process management. I can do industrial supply chain management. I can reduce my processes, reduce my costs, ensure the stability of my processes. But now it's not just about my own production. I may also include external compliance issues. Compliance may have even stricter requirements. It's all about your processes. You're not just making a product. I need to understand how you make your products. What is the process inside? I will also have requirements regarding the quality of your data. I need to disclose more details. So you must have a scientific method for these. And it should be verifiable. I just mentioned that it is very important to be verifiable and checkable. Only then does it truly represent that the data is correct. There are many different clients that comply with regulations now, and their compliance is not the same. If you do not have a certain scientific method, you really wouldn't know how to comply with so many regulations. As General Wang said, now not only compliance but also disclosure has various different standards. So you will find that if a company has to face different disclosure standards, and even say it has to meet the requirements of the local country as well as the exporting country's requirements, you will find that if you look at each one individually, you will achieve twice the result with half the effort. However, if you have a core methodology of your own and then organize all these external factors comprehensively, and you have a core tool, a database, in fact, you will have the opportunity to do one thing while satisfying different requirements. What does it want? For example, CBM is actually doing a life cycle carbon footprint, and it doesn't require the entire life cycle. But in this part, in addition to meeting the supply chain, I could take out the middle part to meet it, so it can meet different requirements. So when you have a solid core, even if the core isn't that complete at the beginning, I have a complete structure, and I can gradually know where I have done well. Therefore, I think that in the entire process of the company's sustainable governance transformation, this framework, methodology, and even database are very important. They can assist them in being more flexible and even more efficient in responding to external demands in the future. This also echoes a question that was repeatedly mentioned during our training this morning, which is the issue of supply chain engagement. Supplier engagement has been the biggest challenge we have faced over the past decade regarding carbon disclosure or carbon footprint issues. It is also the direction where we need to collaborate and work together the most. One of the reasons we need to engage in supply chain discussions is that whether it is related to our organization's emissions or Scope 3, or the calculation of carbon footprints, we need to collect high-quality data from our upstream suppliers or downstream users. This involves whether we can use a method that is acceptable to everyone to collect data, to avoid collecting data that is not aligned. Additionally, as Professor Tung mentioned this morning about the concept and methods of footprints, how to have a clear boundary when defining unit processes. In the future, when core data is formed in the supply chain from upstream, midstream, and downstream, its database can be reused or transferred. It can be handed over from upstream to us, and then we pass it on to downstream, making the construction of this database highly efficient. It can meet various compliance requirements. I think the more important aspect of life cycle management is that we need to reduce our impact on the environment or carbon emissions, going back to the source, because the best approach is source management. In the past, life cycle management started from end management, where I reduced emissions and found the results to be very poor. So now I need to manage from the source. You have a life cycle, and only then can I manage from the source. It's not about reducing emissions only at the end. It's not that I reduce emissions at the end. Every life cycle process is managed, and basically many products. Moreover, to be frank, many products have their footprints primarily at the source. So if I can reduce the footprint at the source through design, basically the entire footprint of my product or service decreases. However, this cannot be done without sufficient information. So it involves negotiation. If tools and data are not provided, and not everyone can negotiate with it, how do you find the one that has the greatest impact on you to negotiate with? How do you find the one that has the most impact on you? Basically, these tools are quite important. Also, I think negotiation is very important because you can provide tools to them. These tools, as Wang mentioned earlier, are consistent with your tools, so what they produce can be immediately aligned with yours. I think this future is quite important. Recently, there has been a very popular topic in a magazine issue about how KISTA redefines carbon footprint or carbon strategy from a corporate perspective, using risk and opportunity as angles in the purpose of business operations. It presents a concept that sets it apart from others, breaking the objective perception of carbon footprint. Previously, people believed that measuring carbon footprint required 3 to 6 months and a lot of money, but they can even produce a carbon footprint in just 1 hour. This analysis article we have actually shared in our supply chain. We have actually shared this analysis in our supply chain, and it aligns with what we have been doing during this period, even over the past 10 years. This echoes what Professor Tung mentioned about having core data. However, constructing core data has a key point. It requires the right methodology. Therefore, there must be a methodological model in place. Otherwise, it would be impossible to produce a footprint report in just 1 hour. So we know that it assumes there is an appropriate model to collect good data, and a key aspect is that there needs to be a platform. Without a platform, the data collection would not be organized together, making it impossible to produce results in 1 hour. This is also related to what we have done before, like disclosing CDP or the core data mentioned by Professor Tung, all of which would be placed on a single platform. In fact, if you view carbon auditing or carbon footprint as just a report, it might only happen once a year. But if you see it from the perspective of a business opportunity, you might need this information every hour, every day. It's dynamic. For example, the footprint could be different depending on the products coming from different buyers and suppliers that I combine. So when a new supplier comes in, how do you quickly calculate that? So I think if we go a step further, in addition to doing a planned footprint supply chain management, I am even dynamically managing it that if the entire system is structured as the same model and the same data structure, you can quickly assemble what the future footprint of this product will be, and even how I can improve it. So, In response to what Professor Tung just said, the biggest key is whether your supply chain itself maintains a consistent route. One of the biggest difficulties we face in execution is that usually the regulatory boundaries of your organization do not extend beyond your factory. Therefore, how to establish a sense of trust with suppliers in the supply chain is crucial. First, there must be trust. The second key point is not to just tell others to do everything. Actually being involved is very important. Since I am the customer and I ask the supply chain to provide products, I need to clearly articulate my requirements. After clarifying, I expect the suppliers in the supply chain to provide the information I need according to the standards I have clearly stated. Professor Tung shared about the morning session, actually discussing some basic concepts of methodology. Why is this very important? Because I often find that some people don't even clarify the definition of the scope, can't distinguish the unit processes, and don't know how to differentiate between close and far in the footprint database, whether it's suitable or not. Therefore, the key data they collect or the footprint reports they produce are basically unusable for us, because they cannot meet our needs for risk response. So this afternoon session is also in collaboration with Professor Tong's team. A key point is that we propose a service platform and methodology for tools, exploring how we can leverage our industry experience in conjunction with the academic strength of the school. After sorting out all the current tools, we provide a method for supply chain vendors, how they can use a consistent and simple tool to integrate and exchange the key data of the unit processes mentioned earlier, forming a local database. This is dynamic, which echoes what Professor Tung said. Since it is dynamic, it means that the quality of the data and the speed of updates can meet various compliance requirements. This is the main key solution to the supply chain's carbon management issues. I hope that in the future, everyone will pay attention to the 17th Sustainable Development Goal, which is partnerships. Therefore, how to form partnerships in the future will be very important. People often talk about mutual benefit and prosperity, so it is about forming partnerships together to create a common impact. In fact, it is also good for oneself, as it creates a similar rhythm, structure, and foundation, which I believe is a very positive thing for the future. Similar to what Walmart is currently proposing, the concept of ecosystem services suggests that each supply chain is actually a part of the ecosystem. Therefore, only by collaborating together to form an ecosystem, sharing a common resource, and cooperating with each other can we solve such a significant challenge.